Episode 332 of No Laugh Track Podcast. It is no, it's on a Wednesday. It's a Thursday afternoon. Not that that matters. We're here at Acme Comedy Company in Minneapolis because this is their podcast. I'm Justin Severson, the host. My guest is Chris Bliss, the Bliss of Chris, Blissful Chris.
How you doing, Justin?
Very good. How are you?
I'm good. First thing I want to say is that because I know this podcast runs for a while. Mm-hmm. Is I just want to say, make sure you come see Josh Weinstein because he'll be coming here after you hear my voice.
Yes.
And he's, I think he's taping a comedy album here, so come during the week. Wednesday, Thursday, I think. That may not be official. I don't think he's, but I know he's taping.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm a listener to his podcast with...
I know, you're a fan.
Yeah.
A fanboy.
Yeah, I'm a fanboy. I'm a fanboy to a lot of you.
You told him last time I was here, you told him it was one of your two favorites.
It is. Uh-huh. Yeah, no, he's been talking about it. It's official. He's going to be here in a few weeks recording a comedy album with, I even know the label, 800-Pound Gorilla. He's even mentioned that. I have no connection to them, but I know that he's talked about it. Yeah. So it's happening.
Well, and it's great, and it's going to, and always not just funny, but like also he writes perfect jokes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 5 jokes out before I've even finished a premise, or a sentence sometimes. So,
speaking of that, I have the satellite radio in my car right now. Seriously XM. And on the drive over here, I had it on the Comedy Station.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I live in St. Paul. The drive over here to the club, you go through what's called the Lowry Hill Tunnel. You go through a tunnel. The signal cut out right after a fucking premise, Chris.
Oh, that's right.
I missed the punchline of a really long setup on the drive over here. So I need to now go back.
A really long setup is when the premise starts when you enter the tunnel and you're getting out of the tunnel and the premise finishes.
True. No, I caught the whole thing and missed the punchline. So as much as I love satellite radio and the Comedy Station and the access to comedy, that's a drawback because if the signal drops out, you might miss the punchline.
So you ever get too happy and then you have to turn and watch Fox for a while and get really pissed again? Get re-upped?
I do. You know what? In all fairness, I do have CNN and Fox News programmed as 2 of my presets.
Well, you have to triangulate everything now, anyway.
I do. They're even on the. Like, what is it, 5 or 6 across? They're on the same one as the Comedy Stations.
That's very funny.
So I do kind of go back and forth between. Not much in common between them, other than there's no music, but I flip around.
Well, and absurdity, but.
How? So I did say it's Thursday. You've been here since Tuesday. How's the week been going?
It's been really good. I mean, we've had great audiences Tuesday and Wednesday night. It's been fun. I've been doing a bunch of new things, which is fine. I mean, you see this here, and it's not an actual injury. The reason that I bandaged my arm is because I was watching that. I'm doing new material, and I was watching that Ted Bundy thing on Netflix, and I realized, this stuff works. You get a little sympathy, and then boom, you let the hammer down. So
that's right.
It's just a ploy.
Oh, you're talking about handsome Ted Bundy. Is that who you remember?
It is quite a story, but of course that's my generation. So
yeah,
I mean, we invented serial killers. There were almost no serial killers before, my generation.
Yeah, I did watch my wife and I sat and watched the Ted Bundy doc, and I was amazed at how much it focused on his handsomeness and how charming he was.
Well, that's what he used.
Yeah. What you mentioned to me briefly before we started recording here. You pointed out a microphone you have hanging from the ceiling here. So what do you have going on this week? Saving something for yourself?
Mostly we're recording people's conversations before the show. And we're trying to find if we can possibly get personal information that's of value, and then we're going to sell it to Facebook. I think we're just going to sell whatever we pick up to Facebook.
Is it? That's very funny, Chris. I saw a headline last night, something about the amount of spying in hotel rooms in South Korea. This isn't connected to one of those. This isn't like a live feed to some...
it could be. I mean, anybody that wants to pay for the feed, I've sold it to, so I'm not really sure where it's going out at this point in time. Could be going to a Russian troll farm.
Okay. But you did show up. You got your computer here. Is there any significance to all this stuff?
I'm recording the shows this week because I'm trying some new things out, and it's fun, and it makes it more challenging. Although last night I came out, and there was a guy sitting in the front row, and I'd seen him at like 4 shows in a row that we've been here when I've been here with Josh, and I looked and I went, oh crap, now I really have to do new stuff. Put a lot of pressure on me to have somebody that you know is down there, and they've just seen most of your stuff. So.
Did you have a chance to talk to that guy afterwards or anything?
Talked briefly, and he was,
he's just a big Chris Bliss fan.
Big Chris Bliss fan, and instead of the live thing this week, I'm actually, you can't see this video anymore. It's been taken down, the video from Montreal, because of the music.
Yes,
you can't see it anywhere except live at Acme. You can see a video. Of like the second or third best performance I gave in my entire life. It's nice to have one of those on tape.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It'd be even nicer if it was a sex tape, but unfortunately, this is a different kind of performance.
We're sure that doesn't exist.
One I have no anxiety about. What? A sex tape? Yeah, I don't think there's any sex tapes. Fortunately, me. I mean, there might have been, cassettes.
Audio only?
Audio only cassettes. Theater of the mind.
No one's paid to have that transferred yet.
Sex theater of the mind.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we're in it's early afternoon right now, and at 11 a.m. this morning, the March Madness began. That's clearly not on your radar.
It isn't.
And
right
I didn't
now.
watch any. I was prepping for this podcast. The Golden Gophers of Minnesota are playing, I think, as we speak still. I have no idea how they're doing.
And would you normally be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you can check. No one's going to know.
No, I know. I'm gonna wait.
If you need me to go on a long riff so you can check your.
No, that wasn't my point.
No,
it's recording somewhere. If I actually am able to avoid the score, I'm going to watch it later today.
Yeah, I don't know. Normally it's a great event and it's interesting to watch, but I've been so out of the loop on it, and I've just been thinking about other things, and so I don't know what that means or doesn't mean, but no March Madness for me.
No bracket. It didn't fill out a bracket.
I've never filled out a bracket.
Never?
I've never filled out a bracket. I might as well just be a chimp thrown at a dartboard to fill out a bracket. I can't get into that anyway. I mean, I would feel that's way too mainstream. I mean, it just is. It just is. It's like, wow, look at the people that are filling out brackets. Even Obama, he looked embarrassed with his bracket.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And his brackets sucked too. So he made brackets about as well as he played basketball. You ever see the video of him playing basketball? He was no good.
That's true.
I don't think he knew if he was right or left-handed. I don't even know.
Have we ever? How were your sports skills growing up? Have we ever talked about that?
Didn't really have any. I was heavy as a kid and kind of slow.
Really?
Yeah. I weighed more when I was 15 than I weigh now.
No shit.
And I was shorter, although 5-8 years from now I might be back to that height. You never know.
No
My
kidding.
mother was funny. She had osteoporosis. I mean, very visible osteoporosis. And I go, Mom, you're shrinking. And she said, yeah, I am. Pretty soon I'm just going to be shoes and a hat. And then she drew it on a napkin. I've got it somewhere. I thought, that's pretty funny, Mom.
That's pretty good. Looking back, was there, when you were in school, was there a class you wish you would have paid attention to more, that you took more seriously?
No. I had some really great professors. Which is half of it. And I had some really great classes, and the only ones I wasn't interested in, I never would have been interested in.
Not something that you missed looking back?
Like, what did we, I don't know, I think there was an astronomy class. I was interested in it to some degree. I remember doing this because this is what a shit I was when I was in college.
Uh-huh.
So, you know what the Doppler effect is, right? It's gravity bending light waves, okay? And you can figure out the gravitational pull by how much the light rays are bending. It's an equation. And this guy gave us 20 Doppler equations to do, right? And I did 2 of them, and then I wrote, this shows that I know how these are done. The rest of this is busy work and a waste of my time.
Okay.
And that was the paper that I turned into the guy. So I think I got a C in that class. And I don't think I went to what's after calculus?
Trigonometry? Was that before?
Well, anyway, I there was some math course that I literally did not go to and showed up and just took the final exam like the nightmare that you have where you know. And I think they gave me a D or something, maybe a C minus. But I mean, it was definitely. I couldn't have passed that test.
Sure,
I could not have passed that test.
Sure.
It wasn't multiple choice. It was like, so.
But you made it out of there.
But I was on my way out by that point. I mean, I didn't graduate, so I went from the dean's list to 6 incompletes. I think that takes a certain kind of focus.
You didn't graduate?
No, I went from the dean's list to 6 incompletes in 1 year.
No kidding. And
at the end of that year, I was living at the band house of a band in Eugene, Oregon, that was playing original music, and I was juggling during their breaks.
What?
So, yeah, it was
Have we
great.
talked about this before? I'm not sure.
I don't know. Probably not. It's like I was in college. I was looking around. I was going, these people are crazy. They think they're going to graduate, go get a graduate degree, and then go get a job for life, because people thought that back then.
This is when you were at Northwestern?
Northwestern, and then the University of Oregon, which is where I ended up dropping out.
Okay.
Well, I dropped out of Northwestern, too, but then I got a really low lottery number, and I went back. And then I dropped out again. Yeah. It was right on the cusp of all that. It was very strange.
Wow.
My lottery number was like 14. But they just stopped drafting lottery numbers 2 years later.
Okay.
So I managed to hang out for the next 2 years, and then when I knew I wouldn't get drafted, I quit going altogether. And started, but the band came along at the same time. So clearly, you have to be able to recognize acts of God.
Yeah, right.
And it was a great experience. I still know a bunch of the musicians from that band, and they're still really close friends. And it's source material, because I was around a bunch of people that were actually, their whole thing was music day and night, and that's all they really did well. It was a great list. I mean, you watch people that are really listening to one another in a band. It was interesting, a lot of call and response stuff. So for me, it was very much source. Yes, there is this other way of living out here, where you're in pursuit of something the whole time. Where you're engaged in the struggle, and I think it was where I sort of recognized myself as, this is what I want. This is how I think about life. This is how I see it. Is like, I'm not trying to get a job. I didn't believe in security. I believed securities was, it was pretty consciously. It's like is figuring this shit out on your own. That's security.
Sure.
And I was looking around, I was going, what are these people thinking, that they're going to just go out, get another degree, get a job for life, and that's. And who would want that?
So present day, what do you think of college and its importance or lack of?
Present day, I think I was vindicated. I think everybody thinks that way today, that they're on their friggin' own and they got to figure it out for themselves. So I feel kind of good. I was, now people agree with that.
Okay, yeah.
Now it's not a secure position, but it's one but it's not a bad position to be in, because at least you have a tool you wouldn't have otherwise, which is your own wits.
Sure.
You're not going to even have that tool otherwise.
Yeah.
But I don't know about college. I haven't played on campuses in years. I hear the free speech thing doesn't sound very like they're. If that's true on college campuses, I feel like really, it's like, wow, guys, this is the only chance you're going to get to think freely. Don't pass it up. You start working, that starts disappearing.
Boy, that's a great point.
So don't waste it on not thinking. Hey, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
And.
That's a great point.
It's like you might as well just go back to church if you just want to be preached to. To hell with it, right? But that's true, isn't it? But I don't know that exists. I've only done a couple things at colleges in recent years. People keep telling me that it really does exist, though, and it's like, that's not worth fighting for.
How did you end up at Northwestern? Straight out of high school?
It was the only school that I got into. I only applied, I think, to 3. I wasn't, I was doing it because I hadn't figured out what else to do.
Yeah.
It was the path of least resistance. I was a good student. I think I applied to 3 schools. I think it was Brown, Amherst, and Northwestern.
Okay.
And the only one I got into was Northwestern, so that was not a decision to be made. It was freezing cold.
I was going to say, how was Chicago in those days?
Well, they had the men's dorms separated on the separate end of campus from the women's dorms, which was just stupid.
And you went anyway.
And it was, I didn't. I was, it just wasn't, I had no confidence in that area. But it was freezing on the lake. The dorms are right on the lake, and but I had some great professors. I had a professor of Buddhism who, turns out, was one of the, people say, the best teacher of Indian Buddhism in the United States. A guy from Sri Lanka. I have his name written down somewhere. I always forget his name when I need to remember it. But I didn't know that at the time, I just knew this guy was, like, incredible.
Yeah.
Have
you taken to that at all?
Well, I understood what he was saying. I mean, as a macro, it seems like a pretty good way to go. Which is, I like the whole Zen stuff about what you're supposed to do if you see the Buddha on the road, right?
What's that?
Kill him. The reason you're supposed to kill him is that you can't follow him, or you've missed the fucking point. Because the point of the Buddha is not follow me. Mm-hmm. The point of the Buddha is follow you.
Yeah. Okay.
So that stuff makes sense to me poetically. It makes sense to me. It just makes sense in the paradoxical nature of it, because it seems that life's a pretty paradoxical thing. So
sure.
But the guy was interesting, and that was what was the guy had an essence about him that was something was dead on spiritual. And this little Indian guy, Sri Lankan guy, riding around the campus of Northwestern on a bicycle in the freezing cold with one of those silly hats with the flaps that come over your ears.
I love those.
And he's in his Buddhist thing, riding on a bicycle. It was an otherworldly guy. And I also had a teacher of African literature who had been in prison on Robben Island in the cell next to Mandela. Is a poet named Dennis Brutus.
Oh, my.
And Nixon was trying to throw him out of the country because he was here talking about divesting from South Africa. He was teaching as a professor, and it was like the only person that he wanted out of the country more was he wanted Lenin thrown out, and he wanted this professor of mine, Dennis Brutus, thrown out of the country, right?
Wow.
But Brutus was just remarkable, because you knew where this guy had been. He didn't say much other by way of introducing himself in the first class. Uh-huh. You knew where he'd been. You knew what he'd been through. He told us about Robben Island a little bit, and you couldn't find a trace of anger or bitterness inside. You could feel transcendence, and it was like, I don't know how this guy did that trick, but that's a good trick.
Yeah,
and that was really a remarkable experience to be around somebody like with that level of freedom, because that's a different kind of freedom right there.
Absolutely.
When you freed yourself from that shit, you freed yourself from a lot. So I had those lights in front of me, of these examples of different ways to view things, and they appealed to me.
Sure.
They made more sense to me. It was all about critical thinking, It's funny, have you seen there's all this debate out there. Do you know about the study of the 5,000 Israeli judges that were involved in parole hearing things, right, for criminals, and they found out that their harsher sentences were their lighter sentences were right after they'd eaten, and their harsher sentences were when they were very, very hungry.
Okay.
And it's a major study. But it's being studied in the context of how much free will do we actually have.
Okay.
All right. And it's being framed as this thing that proves that we have almost next to no free will. Some of it's just chemical, sandwich, compassionate, hungry, not compassionate. And it's kind of a facile argument in that way. So, and I don't know whether that's accurate or not. But the questions of free will, good question. But the question of awareness is a better question, because if you just are out here paying attention, you're going to make better decisions.
Yes.
And you're not going to make those decisions based on your fucking free will, which is about as valuable as free speech when it's just in the service of your ignorance.
Yes. Yes.
So free will's not the issue. I mean, whether you have it or not, if you develop your awareness, you'll make the right decisions.
Yeah.
But make them based on awareness. And I read a guy named Krishnamurti, who I used to read when I was, a hippie, a spiritual guy, back when I was a spiritual hippie. But Krishnamurti, and he would always say that he called it choiceless awareness.
Choiceless awareness.
Choiceless awareness. In other words, your choice is made by your awareness.
Okay.
Which makes sense. And the example he always gave was, if you're standing on a train track and a train's coming towards you, it's not your free will that gets you off the tracks. It's your awareness of what will happen if you don't. What makes you stay on if it's your awareness of what will happen if you do.
Yeah.
If that's your intent, right?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah.
But it isn't, and it's a really good, I mean, the first time I heard that argument, I went, that's the way that I would see it. That's the way that I see it. It's a matter of paying attention to the way things are happening around you, so that you can, just your awareness makes you make better decisions.
Now, somewhere,
and a massive amount of luck, which is one of the things that you also have to be aware of.
Somewhere there's a connection between.
Although the free will people say there's no luck.
Okay, yeah. There's got to be a connection somewhere. Well, I know there is, between free will and making someone laugh.
I think there's a connection between willingness and making somebody laugh. The best shows are when you're really willing to put the full strength of the idea into the material, if there is an idea.
Yeah.
Or just put the full strength of the fun of the thought, even if you haven't got it worked out yet. And that willingness is something that in an audience senses, we've had that early in the week is when you have the chance to do more of that.
Yep.
And so but the audiences have been very much willing to go, okay, we'll see what this is like, and taking advantage of that on stage instead of just doing material.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the great guys are the ones who always have both. They always have the willingness, and they also have the material.
Sure.
But I like the willingness to, try. I'll give you my favorite new joke, and it didn't work Tuesday, and it did work last night.
Okay.
Which is that on the subject of the Confederate monuments, right? And the question is, if you spray a swastika on a Confederate memorial, are you debasing it or just rebranding? And it's just a great joke. I'm sorry. I mean, it's a really nice, funny joke.
Yeah.
And
the word rebranding is just
yeah,
good.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's rebranding. And
same placement each night, or different placement of that
in the
joke?
show?
Yeah.
Oh no! It just has to. It comes out early because it's a sensibility joke, in whatever way, and it doesn't really need a home.
Okay.
Although I have some stuff I'm working on some stuff about the monuments. Is that of course you shouldn't destroy them. I mean, they're historical. Even if all they represent is, the Jim Crow South in 1965 when most of them were put up. People think those Confederate memorials have been there since the war, since the Civil War. No, they were put up by segregationists.
Right.
They were an in-your-face, mythology play is what they were, and they've worked pretty well. But the idea behind the joke was that we should gather them all together and put them in a theme park. Call it Dixieland. Silent slave auction, real whipping post.
Oh no.
And every February, because it's Black History Month, the white people are slaves.
Where would that open?
You know where that would open? We already got that figured out. It would be right next to one of those Christian theme parks where they've got the Brontosaurus in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, there you go.
Be right next to that. Because, you have to have an elasticity of belief for both of them. I tried saying to people yesterday, because I was thinking about it, this Confederate fetish, it's a fetish, It's kind of like cosplay, isn't it? Isn't it a little like cosplay?
Sure.
They just have a flag. They don't have the whole costume, but,
yeah.
On the inside, they're Johnny Rebel. They're Johnny Rebel. So there's a cosplay thing, which is, and I'm sure people have a great time doing cosplay, but it's some part of it just... It seems there's a sadness in cosplay. Maybe I'm missing the point, and maybe I'm the sad clown. It could be, but I don't know.
We would only truly know as if we tried it ourselves.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to.
No. You know why? Because it would be sad. That's why.
I haven't even dressed up on the last couple Halloweens. I'm not going to do
just the last couple.
I mean, I haven't. Yeah,
just the last couple. I quit that when I was 11.
Oh,
Jesus.
No, adult parties can be fun.
Well, yeah, but when I was, there were no Halloween was not an adult holiday when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's obviously been expropriated, but that's just for money. That's all about money. That's just a marketing.
Sure,
you fell for
sure.
it. It should not be an adult holiday, should it? I guess it should. I guess whatever you can.
I mean, it's not necessarily for the greeting cards business. It's more for alcohol, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. It's
right?
for parties where you get to wear a costume.
Yeah,
but that's not cosplay. That's just a costume.
Right.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I was terrible at the costumes. I still remember one that I tried to do, the backwards man, where I put my shoes on backwards and my suit and everything on, and it was so stupid.
What?
And that was my big idea as a kid, the backwards man. So,
and then later on, that became like a fashion trend in some circles, wearing your clothes backwards.
Well, once again, in the Buddhist sense. But then I got a head injury and everything changed for me. You know that yesterday was International Happiness Day, don't you?
I actually did see that.
You did know that?
Yes.
Yeah. And that Finland won again for the world's happiest country.
Yeah.
That's back-to-back for them.
Should we be happy for them or sad for the United States?
Probably neither of the above. I mean, it's always Scandinavia.
Yeah.
And I think that's mostly because of the combination of endless nights and government-sponsored birth control.
Is that it?
I think that's a winning combination.
And saunas.
Oh, yeah.
Saunas, lots of saunas.
And free birth control. I think free birth control has a lot to do with the ethic going on.
Yeah.
The United States dropped to 19th. The year before, we dropped from 14th to 18th. So, but I was thinking about this and see if this makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem with happiness is that it's not really good for the economy.
Why is that?
Because happy people consume less. They're not, right? This is my theory anyway. Now, on the other hand, happy people also produce more. So if they produce more and they consume less, eventually they put themselves out of a job.
It sounds like
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then they become unhappy and they are reflected in the statistics.
Full circle.
Yeah. But 18th, 19th, down to 19th. Hate crimes, 20-year high. I'm working on some of this material. Mm-hmm. You don't mind.
Not at all.
And it's not all white supremacists. There are also black supremacists. That's a 50-50 joke. That's all delivery. I got to really feel it in the moment to say it. I've got to visualize.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. That was too dry, wasn't it? That was a little too dry. There was a little delay there. And then, all right. Well, I'm sorry about that.
Do you have any thoughts on that? We talked about you being in college a little bit. That Operation Varsity Blues, where all these celebrities paid all this extra money to get their kids in USC and whatnot. Your parents didn't have to do that, as you've talked, to get into.
I don't think the apparatus was in place then.
Sure.
I mean, the only thing they had when I was going to college was legacies, right? If Daddy went there, you had a better chance of getting in, I suppose.
And on a little, doesn't that still exist? And why did these people?
No, that's totally there.
Why did
that's for that alumni money letter?
Why did Lori Loughlin and Desperate Housewives lady? Why didn't they just do it that way anyway? Can't you still give endowment or something to a university and then
I think it says something as to how much confidence they have in their children,
I guess.
She can't possibly take that test. Get me a young Lori Loughlin type to play this part. Casting.
Yeah.
It's just there's a general, it's a kind of corruption, isn't it? I mean, it's just plain and simple. All this stuff is just corrupt. That's the only word for it. And the idea is, that's how you get ahead. It does seem to be how people do get ahead. Some people, I'm not mentioning who, but some people get ahead through corrupt means. Mm-hmm. Clearly, politeness is not the path to power any longer.
No, nice guys finish last. Come on, we know that. It's a well-known saying.
Love it for us. Love us for it.
That's right. Nice guy.
No problems down there. Wow. So I really haven't thought about that much, other than it's just kind of like the selfishness of it is the part that you just go, oh, come on, you of all people should understand the luck component here. Don't be, yeah. But people are shallow, you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. They will disappoint you if you give them more than 8 minutes.
Yeah. Sometimes we're better off not knowing everything. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that's what I always used to say about the internet, is that the idea that we could all be connected to one another, the idea much cooler than actually being connected to everyone.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Have you been on Facebook today?
Oh, no, what's going on?
No, there's actually a little fun thing going around Facebook today. I just looked briefly, and I saw something actually kind of fun that we're going to try right now.
Okay.
It's a thing going
All
around.
right, I'm game without a choice.
Sit there and play. No, they're doing it's a thing where you know how Florida, like Florida's sort of known, especially not, with the internet, you get these stories every day. It seems to be there's some odd story could only happen in Florida, right?
The gator stories, those kind of things.
Everything, just the weirdest, strangest.
Stand your ground.
Yeah.
Where the guy shoots the gator.
Exactly.
Or the guy shoots the kid and the gator eats the kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a new thing. It's called the Florida Man Challenge, where you put in the words Florida Man in Google.
Oh, I like the idea.
All right, you put
this is how,
Florida Man, and then you put your birthday. So I did that, and then I'm going to enter yours. So I've already done mine. All right, so mine I did Florida Man, November 27, and I'm not disappointed by the results.
So this is a Google search that you're doing?
Google search, and the top story that comes out is from the Tampa Bay Times. Florida man accused of stabbing woman over underdone potato, November 27th of last year. And that's a Florida story right there. Accused of stabbing a woman over underdone potato.
All right, my turn.
I've never been that angry. You have your phone out there?
Yes, I do.
All right. So Florida man, and then enter your birthday. And while you're doing that, I will say that I thought, you know what? What if I search Minnesota man and do the same thing?
Minnesota man kills Florida man in argument over potato.
I wish that would be great if it was that interesting. It wasn't. The top thing that came up when you do Minnesota man, it was 6 different reports on the weather from November 27th. So that really just shows that what our focuses are here. In Minnesota, the weather. In Florida, a crazy crime.
Well, and at some point the database realizes that those terms people are clicking whenever they say Florida man.
Sure. Did you get one?
So far, the Florida Man Music Festival. I'm not sure about that one.
No.
No. Florida Man Music Festival? What the hell is that? That's what they're all coming up. Florida Man Festival.
You better pick a different birthday.
I'm going to have to. But now I'm wondering what the hell. There's a new entrant on the Central Florida rock festival scene, the Florida Man Festival, an alternative rock fest put on by a local station. Weezer, Young the Giant, Cold War Kids, Iration, Bishop Briggs, Robert DeLong, Sir Sly. You know any of these acts?
Weezer.
Okay, well, there you go. That's why they were listed first. All right, I'm sorry about that. I'm digressing.
I have if you're still looking there, I have another thing to bring to your attention while you're looking there.
Go ahead.
All right. You have a car. You still live in Vegas?
Yes, sir.
You have a car?
Oh, Vegas Man's always a good one, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a car in Las Vegas?
Yes, I do.
Did you see this thing about this new Volvo that's going to be coming out? It will be able to watch you drive and pull over if you seem distracted.
So it's a socialist car.
What do you think about that? Earlier here, I'm going to...
As long as it has a Swedish accent and not a German one, I'm okay with it.
That's very funny. So it says, earlier this month, a Swedish company announced its future cars will have a max speed limit of 112 miles per hour. And now the company says it's introducing in-car cameras and sensors that hold on a second here, I lost that. That will monitor the driver for signs of distraction or intoxication, which include looking away from the road for too long, keeping your hands off of the steering wheel, weaving through lanes, or reacting too slowly while driving. So it's not a completely driverless vehicle, which kind of scares me, but it's a almost driverless. You can close your eyes and drive. driverless. I don't know if I like that.
You can close your eyes.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying it's going to do just about everything for you.
Well, they're trying to get us to driverless.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is sort of the training wheels driverless.
Yeah. I mean, and I tell you what, I've got a car that if you're approaching the car in front of you too quickly, it does apply brakes.
It does.
Yeah. Which my wife told me about that, and I said, I've never had that happen.
Did you just stumble onto a new joke there?
I think I just stumbled onto a deep truth. That's what I stumbled onto.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's
okay. Family of Florida woman run over on I-95, sues man she met online. That's good enough.
There you go. We got a payoff.
First date with a man ended tragically as her body was found. Wow.
Ooh.
Family of him. Yep, that's a bad first date.
That is a bad first date.
First date, last date.
I'd say so.
Left her on I-95 and cars ran over her.
Eee.
Cars, multiple cars.
Eee.
Wow.
Well, I was in Florida 3.5 weeks ago, and I've said on the podcast since then that the driving down there is questionable. There's no doubt about that.
Coming from a Minnesotan, because people here drive so
we have our own issues. They're different, though.
Yeah.
We have our own issues here, but they might be.
Well, one good thing about living in Los Angeles is that every place else is easy by comparison.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's such an onslaught. It's so constant. You're either in aggressive traffic or or stuck in traffic.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
So that got, and that even during like the economic downturn. I mean, if we're going to be in a huge recession and the traffic's not going to get better, what's the fucking point? If I can't find a closer parking spot when I do go to the mall. So
I agree.
That was when it was like, no, to hell with this place.
How did you end up living in Vegas?
Well, I went to Austin for a Bill of Rights project, and it wasn't, the Texas project wasn't going anywhere. It seems as soon as I leave places, then the projects start to pick up steam.
Okay.
I left Arizona for Texas and to pursue the project there, and then the Arizona project came back to life. I left Texas. I just wanted to get back out west. You know, the West is beautiful. I live on the west side of Vegas. It's nice.
Yeah.
The mountains were out by near where I live in Summerlin. You know, I can go up to an 8,000 foot ski resort in 25 minutes. It's not much nicer than I thought it would be. So that part I like.
Yeah. Are you actually taking advantage of that 25-minute drive to?
Yeah, all the time.
You are? Okay, good.
Yeah. So that's the part that really I was not thinking about. I was thinking, hey, California's just over those mountains. I wasn't thinking, well, these are pretty nice mountains to be close to.
Yeah.
So that part's really pretty.
Have you noticed any changes since legalization of pot? Good or bad? Anything?
I've noticed that the park smells different. Okay.
Uh-huh. Sure.
I saw a guy coming out of a pot store. All right. Flannel shirt, scruffy hair, dungarees, whatever they're called. Tennis shoes, skateboard under his arm.
Mm-hmm.
48 years old. Hopping onto his skateboard, presumably to skate himself back to mom's basement.
Hey.
And I was thinking to myself, that's who they should put on the warning label, for them, because they've got to have some sort of warning labels. And I think the 45-year-old guy with the skateboard, that would be a warning for the warning labels jokes. I don't know who's doing them yet. Somebody's probably was doing them in the Cheech and Chong era, probably.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah, but it's fertile ground. So.
Yeah.
Basically, you just say to people, what kind of warning labels should we have on those marijuana cigarettes? And then you don't even have to finish the premise. You don't need punchlines. The premise is everything.
Yes.
You go with it, people. Hey, chocolate bar. Good one, buddy. Good one.
That's right.
Yeah, diabetes. There you go.
That's right. Why don't you give an update on what you have going with your Bill of Rights stuff?
Well, the Oklahoma project's beautiful. Design was approved unanimously, the schematic design, trying to get into design development by the Stone Fort. People can see that at mybillofrights.org. It's really, really nice. In process in Texas in the legislature right now for another level of approval to because of some guidelines we need a variance from. It's complicated. I guess it should be this complicated. I mean, the Bill of Rights was written and ratified in 2 years. Apparently things were easier back then.
Less people to argue with.
Yeah, well, but it's a right process because it's a public process, and you're talking about art in public spaces, or in this case, a monument. It should be a process that stakeholders are involved in at every phase of it. So, and I'm advocating for a process document. So I can't really say, hey, enough of your process. That's hey, enough of your process. We're talking about the Bill of Rights. What's that have to do with process? So, but it's something that's really, I still think, is just a beautiful idea. To put monuments of the Bill of Rights at every state capital. I think to actually point to our common ground and shame people into some thought about the subject.
Sure.
Is like instead of just I was doing this on stage yesterday. It came out just right. I got to listen to that tape. I love coming to Acme. It's so much fun. Which was just about how don't tell me you did it because it was your gut told you to do it. I said, what your gut is meant to process. It's not thought. So if you're processing thought with your intestines, what are you processing in your head? And that problem is there. So,
is fundraising an issue right now, or just getting people's attention?
Fundraising is always difficult.
Yeah.
And this doesn't fall into normal foundation parameters. Should get easier now that we have the design.
Okay.
Design's the first hard one, and then the next hard one is getting the first large contributions post-design. That's and then people start to. It's like everything else. Nobody wants to be first in the pool. Most money that's given by local groups and local people is given for education or healthcare. Makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. So. The difference in it is that a very select group of people really understands and believes in the beauty of a project like this and the value of it. And for those people, it's holy grail material, and they really get it. And so it's not like where you have to convince people to give to your healthcare organization or your education organization, It's very specific. People either get it or they don't. And then, also, Oklahoma, they know, the whole thing that happened with the Murrah building and the memorial that's been put up there, that changed that city. And that community has been brought together in part through that memorial. They understand the iconic value of things in this location. They have a beautiful Capitol building. They've given us a wonderful site for this. So, it'd be a really beautiful thing.
I was looking at stuff this morning. I saw on, was it Kickstarter, I think? Somebody's has been raising money to put out an album, a record album. Each side is 20 minutes of no sound, and they're advertising it as to be played during meditation. It's sort of a joke.
That's really funny.
Right. Now, what I'm getting to is, could you use one of these online, fundraising sites? Could you just post something, that is an ongoing?
I think you have to be at a certain point in your funding. The whole thing is that while we, mybillofrights.org, is a national, in quotes, organization with a mission to do things at all 50 state capitals, the money has to be organized. A local group has to organize around the effort. We'll walk you through the process, but you're going to have to raise the money for an Oklahoma monument to the Bill of Rights in Oklahoma.
Okay,
that's just the way it works, and in reward for that, you control the project. You raise the money, you control the project. We'll help you find designers. Well, all it has to do is fit through our guidelines, is that it can't be a plaque on a wall because this is the Bill of Rights and it deserves an appropriately a substantial display so that people can actually encounter the document and its meaning and not have it just be dead words on a plaque.
Sure.
Right? So that's the idea. So again, the fundraising is locally based, but at some point you can come in and try to get the small contribution base. But you have to be at a certain point in the project. Probably once design development is completed, you have final drawings of what it's going to look like on the site. That's exciting. And that's when you can really start to engage publicly. And the group that we put together in Oklahoma, they want to do that. They want to go to every small town in Oklahoma.
Oh, good.
And maybe we can have those donor granite pavers on the site, because the more people it represents, the more locations it represents, the more donations it represents, whether it's $1 or whatever,
sure,
the more power it has as a representation of, and people can go, and for generations they will be, you put this here because these are being designed to be 100-year installations.
Some would argue that would be more powerful than the legacy brick you can get outside the Viking Stadium. Get your name there. They did something there just like that.
Yeah, mostly because the Vikings are 0-4 in the Super Bowl, though. That's the real reason. If you're a world champion, then people will... I don't know about... Yes, I guess you're right. Well, okay, so we won't give them vanity bricks. We'll give them pictures of vanity bricks.
Yeah.
Okay? and then you can look it up in the database when you go there. But no, that is true. And but I think a project like this, also from my experience, you want to... you've got to build from the top down, because it takes too long to put together $1 million, through $20 contributions, unless your first name is Beto. And then apparently, I should have said, unless your first name rhymes with Play-Doh.
Play-Doh.
Not Play-Doh, Play-Doh. Okay? Not Play-Doh.
Right.
Yeah. Although somebody is probably going to now make a sculpture of Beto with Play-Doh.
If they haven't already, yeah.
And then maybe they'll make Beto next to Play-Doh out of Play-Doh.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know.
How far can
this
you
is when the synapses start failing. It's obviously it's time for me to change my lithium battery. Or just my lithium.
I got one more hard hitting thing we need to discuss here.
Okay.
I need your thoughts on in your hometown. I searched Vegas for news. This was one of the top stories. This was the top story today that wasn't about like a sexual assault or anything terrible like that, which I didn't want to bring up. Donnie and Marie are ending their Vegas run in November. Your thoughts?
I wish the run could have ended more like Siegfried and Roy's did. Because, they went out with style. Right? Did they not? One of their most memorable shows.
Absolutely.
And I just want to know when she's going to stop doing Weight Watchers commercials.
I don't know.
She's not retiring from that. Have you seen the Terry Bradshaw walk-in shower commercial, walk-in bath commercial?
No.
Infomercial type thing where it's a walk-in bath, all right?
Sure, I get it.
But you can also make it a walk-in shower too. So you're not necessarily a really old fuddy-duddy. You're just a fuddy-duddy.
Oh yeah.
Right, and he's in the tub and everything. And this is what's cynical. This is a product for people over the age of 70. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest, all right?
Sure.
At the end of the pitch, and the ad, he goes, and not only that, but it has a lifetime guarantee. And it was like that's whoever wrote that knew exactly what the subtext on that was. So it was just like it kept making me think. When Daisy and I got married, we went out to buy our first bed together, and the guy was telling her this mattress has a 20-year guarantee, and she just said, "What makes you think the marriage will last that long?" I just cracked up. Couldn't believe that she said, and she said it to talk him down on price, and she got $200 knocked off.
Hey, that works.
Oh yeah,
that's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything else we should be mentioning before I cut you loose here? Anything else you're in?
No, except Josh Weinstein again. We'll mention Josh again. People need to come to that show when he's in town because he and I usually work together or have many, many times.
Yeah.
This time he wanted to do an album and I wanted to tape some new material, so it was like, well, let's do it this way, and you will not regret. You will not regret coming to see Josh. So.
I agree.
And that's it, because that's, anybody who made it this far through the podcast obviously either has no place else to go or thinks that I have the credibility to make such recommendations.